super thick hair.
Well, looks like we might be
Holly,
going
we're gonna need you to edit
early.
that. Do a Bruno Mars cut, really, Elijah? I could not. I've cut my hair short a couple of times, and I've donated it. It's been like chin length twice in my life, I think. Hasn't been like that for many, many years now.
Well, looks like we're about to be live on YouTube.
Yay. Yay.
Make sure we're muted here. Bada bing, there we are. Live on a Tuesday night. It's Triple T, Talk Time with TJ, on September 3rd, 2024 for Triple T number 140.
Wow.
Yeah, right? Still blows my mind every time I say a triple digit on this. Like, holy cow. 140 in a row. And I still introduce myself. My name is TJ Zebel. I like to call myself a professional problem solver, which I always have to follow up with. No, I don't know everything. I just have a unique way of asking lots of questions and helping people get to the answers they're looking for. If I can't get the answer for you, I have an amazing tribe of people that I can reach out to help find the answers. And there's always the internet, which I've gotten really good at using as well. And I'm not afraid to use it. Speaking of the internet, I do have a website as well, the tswb.com, the tall, skinny white boy.com is exactly what it stands for. I don't care what else you find on the internet. Don't look. It's, yeah, like that. And I offer a free 30-minute consultation. That's your opportunity to invest 30 minutes of our lives together, to chit-chat, to see if we're a fit and find out what it is I can help you with. I help people. I get the privilege of helping people with all sorts of stuff like depression, anxiety, phobias, PTSD. I do a lot of work with people for relationships and communication. I offer corporate coaching. I work with athletes from beginner all the way up to the pro level. And everything in between. I could list off all the things that I help people with, but then we'd be out of time because we're only here for 2 hours. If this is your first time tuning in and your first time watching, the way we work it here is the first hour. I do my best to cover 3 topics that I've come up with during the week. And then the second hour is open platform, open mic. So anybody on the call is welcome to ask questions, bring up topics, and then everybody on the call gets to answer first because I like to learn as well. And then if there's anything left for me to add, that's when I add my 2 centavos. And what else? We're live on YouTube. So hi, Mom. And I see that Dave's tuning in as well. I don't know if Mom's there. Tell her I said hi. If you are a first timer on the YouTube, please do all the fun YouTube stuff. Click the subscribe, ring the bell, write comments on all the videos, share as many as you can with as many people as possible. What else? Hey, guess what? Time to introduce the tie of the week. And I've had a few people going, you wear a different tie every week? Yeah, I have that many ties. So, tonight, got a little poo on the tie. That's right. A little bit of poo for those
That's
of
a good
you.
one.
Mm-hmm. Let's see what else. Anybody got anything cool, ahas, epiphanies they'd like to share from the last 7 days since we were here? Lenora.
I just wanted to say that I love this group of people. I happen to talk with people outside of here, and there are times in the morning where I'm trying to shift this because I'm used to waking up at 4, but it's just not jiving. So I was thought, okay, let me wake up at 5. Made it all the way to 4:15, folks. And among the many things that go through my brain in the morning, I ended up texting Elijah very early in the morning because he was awake. And I was ranting about something and the importance of having a tribe. I noticed ever more so of finding ways to, I don't trust people very easily, and finding that even after 2 and 3 years of spending time with you guys, it's always nice to be able to say, I can reach out to somebody. There's somebody who can have an answer right now, and I didn't even know I was looking for an answer. And I had said something of like, it's all a mind game. And I suddenly had like 5 different brains between the higher conscious, the gut brain, the regular brain, the heart brain, like it was all over the place. And Elijah texted back along the lines of, you have thoughts, not your thoughts. And it was just the perfect timing of words from the right person at the right time. And it completely interrupted the entire pattern that I was stuck in. And it completely turned my day around. And I've done that. I've spiraled a couple of times. You've all seen me do this. But TJ has been somebody who has been very, very helpful to me. And Holly has been somebody who's very helpful to me. And Elijah. And you guys just really, you make my life better. So thank you, TJ, for creating this amazing tribe and for being incredibly supportive, especially to me, to keep talking. Because if you go back to episode 1, I was quite quiet. So thank you for creating such a space.
Wow. Now I got the feels and everything. Cool. Anybody want to try and follow that up? Michael.
I was going to talk about your tie, and the story about Winnie the Pooh and all
Good
the different things that we talk about are actually tied with your tie.
Yeah.
I can't top Lenora, but your tie is kind of cool.
Thanks. Anybody else want to make me get the feels? Love you, Mom. Throw that out there while I'm at it. Well, now that we got all that done, that's awesome. Should we see if we can get through 3 topics tonight?
I'm ready. Let's rock and roll.
Right on. Tonight's topics: regional training, tune-up, and becoming. I always feel like maybe I should have one of those hats like Johnny Carson had when he was doing his things. Regional training. This one kind of hit me with right on. That threw my bing, right lane. Regional training. This has been an interesting week of ahas and epiphanies with the clientele. Holy smokehouse, as Papa would say. And it turns out I have quite a number of clients from Jersey and New York.
I didn't even realize I was not muted.
That was the perfect reaction because I almost had the same type of aha when it hit me. And ironically,
One of them.
well, some of the other ones, you know what challenges they have? Inner talk. A sarcastic inner child who wants shit their way. And if somebody disses them, ooh, that inner child wants to tear things apart, rip hearts out, shove it down their throat, and then go after their family. And it wasn't until the first client that I pointed that out, I was like, wait a minute. Where did you grow up? New Jersey. What are people from New Jersey and New York kind of known for? Well, what do you mean? Like, if you tell somebody that somebody's from Jersey, what kind of personality might the world think that person might have?
An attitude.
Yes, perfect picture, Elijah. Judgmental, argumentative. Hey, you know, da 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 da, and that's their way of saying, "How you doing, buddy? I love you." Yes, baby rage. And I said, "Well, do you?" And I had one go, "Well, I wasn't like that." I said, "But you were trained. Our hard drive has programs put on it from conception up to age 5 or 7, or possibly even farther back. And there's a lot of things I could say, but we're on a family show right now. But you watch some of the shows from that, even like for a while, Jersey Shores, I think it was some show on MTV after they stopped playing music. And sarcastic, judgmental, quick angers, love to fight. And the one client, when I pointed that out, they were like, because ironically, none of them live there anymore. Well, I haven't lived there I went, yes, but you were trained for how many years to hear those types of reactions, those types of judgments, those types of. And I said, when you first moved away, what did you notice about the people where you moved to? And when I asked that question of all of them, they were like, everybody was so nice. Like, kind of like freaked me out, kind of nice. Like, they said hi. Like they would wave while they're driving by. People would say hello on the sidewalk with a smile. And I was like, what did they mean by that? Probably meant hi. Well, yeah, I figured that out later, and one of my clients the other day, who we kind of share a certain that excellence gene, and they were working on a project for one of their clients. And we're just going to say if it could have gone wrong, it did go wrong for about an hour. And like me, when working on a project like that, with that excellence gene, where things just, it's supposed to be a 15-minute project, and an hour later, everything has not turned out, and that you realize you're not going to finish the project today. And they were doing the work on a Sunday when they wanted to be home grilling. And so they just packed up everything and walked out to their car, and the owner of the place followed them out. It was like, what's going on? And the Jersey side of them came out, and they totally unloaded on the owner and completely regretted it when they got home and called me up. And I had already worked with 2 clients, and I remembered that this person had grown up in Jersey as well. And I said, don't be so hard on yourself. Well, I said, where did you grow up? Grew up in Jersey. Had you reacted that way, had you done this project while in Jersey, could you have acted differently while working on the project? And they went, yeah, probably. I said, would the people in the establishment been completely surprised if you maybe would have let a F-bomb fly or something like that? No. I said, would the owner have misunderstood or had a problem if you went out to your car fuming mad and you let them know how things were going? No. I said, you had training. And the human side of you went back to some of your earliest programming. That's why I labeled this first one regional training. There are other parts of the world where having a fit or having anger showed weakness. You were to keep that stuff in at all times. You were to make sure that you always had control of your emotions. Sounds all good and fine. The only problem is if you don't know how to unpack that later on. The Body Keeps the Score is a book that describes quite a bit about what happens when we start grabbing all of those emotions and packing them down like a pack rat. Eventually, the body starts going, hey, we got all this junk down here that you haven't dealt with yet, and it's affecting this junk over here that you haven't dealt with yet, which is really torquing off this area where you've got all this junk down here that you haven't dealt with yet. And apparently the only way we're going to get you to notice is if we make you sick, so we can get rid of this area where you packed all this junk. Well, where did you learn to put all that junk in that area? Regional training, your upbringing. And the healthy balance seems to be right in that in-between of not blowing off the handle at everything that happens, but being able to get to the point where you're like, all right, Can't leave this stuff packed down here. Need to deal with it, need to get it out, need a tribe, need somebody, need some ears. That's where those of us here on this call, as agents of change, we show up and we make sure that we help our clients unpack that stuff that they most likely don't even know they've been packing away for how many years. Well, I forgave them. Did you? Or did you just say the words and left the luggage down there? Well, that happened years ago. I'm over that. Are you? Well, you don't understand. They're family. I just have to deal with it. Do you? Well, I just let it roll off my back. It doesn't affect me. Except for the way you talk to yourself. Your self-image, your beliefs, your belief systems. And so at some point, we have to get to where even if we think we're fine, we look back at our regional training and start using it as a lens, a mirror, a reflection into what a number of our limiting beliefs are today. Where did the fire start? Where is the source? What are we using to medicate the symptoms? And it doesn't have to be drugs or alcohol or stuff like that. For some people, it's work. For some people, it's buying, it's stuff. For some people, it's being small, hiding away. For some people, it's proving that they are the biggest one on the block. There are so many different ways to medicate to cover up the packaging that we've stacked and stored away so deeply, so neatly, or so we think. Any questions, ahas, epiphanies, comments on what we've covered so far? Mark.
I noticed I had an insight working with this family, and the new daughter-in-law, they'd gotten together on a holiday like the one that just passed yesterday, and she was blown away by all the negativity and all the stuff that that family was saying to one another. And I had an aha. I said, well, was it a knife fight or was it a mud fight? Because a lot of times when family gets together, all the mud gets thrown around, and all the you add in a little alcohol, and people are saying things that they have stored up, and but it's mud, you wash it off, and the next day you just go on with your life. When it becomes hurtful, but some families regionally, they make a habit of getting together on the holidays and having a mud fight.
Yes.
versus a knife fight. And I had to draw that distinction that, yeah, tomorrow everything is fine. Everybody goes back to work. Everybody has a, but families get into a habit sometimes of getting together on the holidays and having a mud fight. And she grew up in a family where everybody got together on the holiday. Everybody, they all had a good time and, had a good experience. But some families, again, sometimes regionally, they like to have mud fights on every holiday.
Yeah. And I had some friends where they had no problem with an absolute all-out brawl.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you'd have brothers that would mom would be kicking them out of the house because everybody knew it was time for a butt whooping, and you ain't gonna stop them. Let them get out in the yard and beat the snot out of each other, and you better not get in between them, because then both of them will gang up and beat the snot out of you because you interrupted their fight. But then they get into a relationship and they don't know how to expend that energy with their partner. Regional training. And so we've got all of these different upbringings, personalities, situational stuff as kids that we watch, view, record, that tell us one of the ways that we can deal with our stuff. And then we start hanging out with our friends and our besties and all the above. And it's amazing how some of our best friends can treat us worse than we would ever allow anybody else on the planet to treat us. Because 80% of the time, they're our bestie. And the other 20% of the time, they know exactly where our buttons are located. And right where the building blocks for our belief systems and our self-image are designed. And they have the ability to go in and do some of the most damage. And we carry that and hide it and think it had no effect on us. Until later on when we're trying to date, or we're trying to be in a relationship, or we're trying to learn how to work with others at work, or how we're trying to figure out why we can only get so far before we self-sabotage. Regional training. Lenora.
So I find this topic very interesting, especially because people will say something along the lines of, oh, I make fun of you because I love you. And that can be very confusing and very hurtful. And, oh, they did that because they love you. And that was something that I heard very frequently growing up. And I don't agree with it. It's something that I've thankfully moved away from. And thankfully, even in certain situations, people have said about my own vocabulary, about the things that either A, I'm saying to myself, or when I was younger, thinking like, oh, well, that's the way that you talk, and stupid shit you pick up along the way. I had one friend turn to me and say, please stop referring to me like that. And it was it still to this day stands out vividly in my mind. And she was very kind about it. But it was something that really helped me pay attention to the way that I was talking to other people. And it's thankfully a completely different version of myself. And really to notice how people talk to each other, but also how you feel after you leave that interaction, I think is very, very important. And then you can decide, do I want to keep talking like that? But you see it all the time, whether it's local, regional where you grew up, or it's regional at work, and people will commiserate over the same things, and they enjoy that energy. They enjoy that way of bonding together. And it's socially interesting, but also very sad.
Yeah. Yes. You're right, Elijah. Misery loves company. Until it learns that it's that negative energy that if you just keep spewing it into the pool, it's like everybody's peeing in the pool at the same time because they like how warm it is. But we're all in the same pool. Blech. I know somebody out there just went, ew. Yeah, but sometimes I feel the same way when I'm in a group that starts talking like that, where it's just negative, negative, and I'm like, I gotta go. There's too much pee in the pool right here, right now. I'm gonna go rinse myself off. I would rather sit out in the sun on a recliner than be in the pool with you all peeing on yourself. Just saying. Any other, squirrel. And for those of you watching for the first time, my squirrels have squirrels who know squirrels. It's also the same with, I've worked with some strong Asian culture people, especially women who grew up with dragon mothers. And that was another program that we had to go in and help them. And it's just, you can say, well, it's just the way they're raised. You're right. But when they came over here and saw what they could be, what else they could be, I should say, and they decided that they didn't want to be small and mousy anymore, and wanted help learning how to have a voice, how to stand up, how to believe in themselves, how to not have to rely on finding a husband that they could be submissive to so that they could survive. Again, regional training. Lenore.
I wanted to also say that I think there's a big difference between knowing people who are making fun of you or putting you down versus being playful. And I think it's important to specify, because some people could take it as like, oh, you always need a safe space. You always need this. You always need that. And it's not the case. It's quite literally choosing who you like to be around, who you want to spend time with. And it's not that I can't be around those people. I effectively and intentionally choose to minimize my time with those people because I don't like how I feel after that interaction.
Yes.
And it definitely has a ripple effect.
And I don't know if I'm definitely not going to name any names, but I've got some friends from back home that a couple hours a year is enough. And then I got to go. Holly.
It's funny. My life tends to have themes for different periods of my life, and I didn't even know this was a theme until we started talking. This last week, I started the week by talking to somebody about especially people pleasers and about how kind of this regional, idea that we become the person that we think the other person wants us to be in almost any situation. So you hang out with your parents and you become who you think your parents want to be. And you hang out with your friends and you become who your friends want you to be. And then you hang out with your spouse and you become the person your spouse wants you to be. And we were talking about, like, have you ever even really met you? Do you even know who you are? Or are you spending so much time becoming the person other people want you to be? You've never even explored that. You've never even tapped into that. And I think it's funny because then this week I've just kind of let stuff play when I'm getting ready, and the shows that have come up have not stuff that I probably would have chosen on my own, but I happened to see, Runaway Bride, which is very much, that's the whole theme of that movie. And then I saw the Star Trek Next Generation episode. For those who are Star Trek Next Generation fans, you'll be familiar with the phrase "there are four lights," which is very much the same. And then also a Doctor Who episode of, it's not one I like that much, but it happened to play. But the whole point of the episode is that a computer, when it was, born, basically had its parent's imprint on it on accident, and parent had to wipe the imprint before the computer could become who it was supposed to be because it was a living computer. Kind of silly episode, but I just think it's funny. This theme was going through my entire week and I didn't even know it. So thanks for being the next step in that chain. But I think it's an important concept.
No, great insight. I'm glad you brought that up, Lenora.
You can go. I'll wait.
No, that was.
I love that you brought that up, Holly. And I think that I don't even want to say this type of work because I feel like when you're curious about helping other people, you naturally do it. But coming together in a group and having a conversation about it, and the fact that we've been here now for 140 episodes, I think is extraordinary because we get to see how each other evolves, but also we're having conversations, and they're not necessarily conversations. Heartbreakingly, I would have not met any of you if it wasn't for Zoom. So thank God for TJ and Zoom. But they're not necessarily conversations that you would have struck up. We started talking about these topics because TJ had opened the door and brought them out. And in that, I think we each get that ability to have that insight when we walk away at the end of the day and we think about it over the next week and, oh, that was a story, or, oh, this was, well, gee, I wonder what they read, or, hey, that's really interesting. And you get to really come as you are here and be however you want to be, but in a very, very open, sincere way. I don't think, anybody's putting on a face to go networking or putting on an act to try and get this role or this position. It's just very open. And I think that the fact that you created this space really helps people realize what kind of person they are. What do they like? What do they not like? What else do they want to explore? And it's very beautiful.
Thank you. Mark.
Something mixed in with this theme is, like I said, we all have that sarcastic friend that only, and of course, sarcasm indicates insecurity. And I have a sarcastic friend, and I tried various methods to, get him to calm himself down. And the most effective was, when he'd say something, because sarcasm breaks bonds, humor builds bonds. And when he'd be sarcastic towards me, I'd just turn to him and I'd be like, yeah, I love you too, Mike. And it would, it would knock the legs out from underneath him. Because, and his response was, well, Mark, I only tease people that I do truly care about. And it led to a moment of vulnerability. So when I treated the sarcasm in the proper way, he became vulnerable.
Yep. And very effective and a great way to go about it. Thank you for sharing that here.
Took me a while to figure it out, but I did.
Right? One of the other things that Squirrel just brought in was one of the best things I think I ever did was I went to Europe for a year by myself. And when you travel on your own for that length of time, in places where nobody knows you, no reference, and you get to decide who they see. And it took me a while to decide whether or not I wanted to be the person I was when I left the United States. And I became so much fun. And the biggest challenge I had was coming home to people who thought they still knew me and had reserved that little box that they built for me for who I was. And I had some people call me out. They're like, what do you think now because you went to Europe, you're like this big da 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 da. And I went, no, but I'm not the person that you said see you later a year ago. And I've got some friends there that I've got two friends that I can name that may have now, but they were proud for many years that they had never left Minnesota. And I said, that's fine, but you don't get to judge those of us who have traveled. That's like going to the buffet and being proud of the fact that you only eat the cheese sandwich. Nothing against cheese sandwiches. I like a good cheese sandwich. But you got the seafood island over there. Oh, no, that's for them fancy schmancy people. Yeah, I know, it's really good. I tried it. But then you got the steak island over there. Oh, no, that's way out of my league. Yeah, well, if you believe it, it's all available. That's why it's called a buffet. Yeah, you're just one of those, you just try anything. Yep, you're right. And I've had a great time doing it. And now we've got 18 minis to try and fit in two more. So really quick, any other ahas, epiphanies, input on regional training? Or did you want to save it as a question for the second hour?
Excellent topic.
Excellent topic. Thank you. Well, let's slide right into tune-up. Tune-up! And I heard a statement many years ago that people will take better care of their automobiles than they will of their body. Anybody hear that one? And how many agree with it? Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
That's so funny. I had made a post this weekend about self-care, and I hear you on the car, but I think people will protect their money more than they will protect their health. They'll find ways to keep more of their money and to spend less of it, and they will not do the same for their health.
They will also have, if they've got the cash, if they can do it, multiple cars. Because A, they can, and B, it's security in case one breaks down. And if they're going to have a main driver, well, they'd like some technology. Got to have cruise. Now you got to have Bluetooth. Got to have that wireless remote. Got to have GPS. Hands-free. Security system. Dash cam. And yet you ask them, what improvements have you done to yourself? Do you work out? Do you take care of your body? Do you get your checkups? Do you watch what kind of food you put in your body? When you got tires for your car, did you put on the cheapest ones possible? No, they're junk. Did you put in the cheapest oil possible? Well, no, not, I mean, I didn't go for the most expensive, but I'm certainly not going to put in. And some people don't care. They'll just drive that thing, they'll drive the wheels right off of it. Watch Just Rolled In. Anybody heard of that YouTube channel? Just Rolled In will tell you how some people take care of their cars. But then there's also television and YouTube shows that will show you how poorly people take care of their body. And then we get to the mind. And you watch what some people put in their mind. And what they'll watch and what they'll read and what they'll believe and what they'll refuse to watch and refuse to read. And at some point, I think we could all use a good tune-up, me included. You hear it as when you're growing up, there'll come a point where you realize that you are no longer 6 foot tall and bulletproof. Uh-huh. I got a shoulder that's been bothering me for about 4 months now. And it's been acting up on and off for about 25 years. And usually it'll bother me for about 2-3 weeks. But not 2-3 months. And then the other night I went outside to make sure everything was locked down and called the dog and turned around and tripped on a deal on the patio and broke my fall by grabbing the chair with my left arm, which brought about a level of pain that I haven't experienced in a long time, thank God. But everything went white for a while, and I got the sweats. And of course, the dog showed up right away and wanted to know what was going on and wanted some petting. And I'm like, please, just don't breathe. Don't move. Don't do nothing. My arm is broke. Not really, but It literally, it hurt that bad. And it was another little reminder that I'm not 18 anymore. But a couple of days later, I ran into somebody that is approximately my age. And we got into talking for a while, and I realized that they have not worked on this. They have survived at minimum input the whole time. But their body appeared to be okay. And it made me evaluate, would I rather have a perfect body and minimal access, or whatever you want to call it? And then you look at the other extreme of, I had his name, wheelchair bound, but brilliant
Stephen
mind.
Hawking.
Thank you. Talk about extremes. And I suddenly became grateful for the position I'm at. Now, I'll be very happy when this gets figured out and we're back to normal and I can go back to not being anxious about reaching for stuff behind me or above me on my left. But at least I can walk around and do work. I can do 80% of the stuff that I need to do, but every now and then I'll get that little zinger, which is I don't know if it's the ironic sucky part or whatever, but yeah, I'll be able to do everything I can do, and then all of a sudden I'll reach for something and it's like somebody hit me right there with a ball peen hammer. Smack! And like, whoop, whoop. Okay, arms down. We're done for a little bit. Call me righty. But it also helped reprioritize the fact that I need to get back to working out. And people think it's interesting when you reach that point, some never do, but some do, where you're like, all of a sudden you're researching herbs and healthier supplements and different ways of working out and things to help make you healthier, and you're looking at menus in restaurants differently. Because even though you've always liked that fried chicken with extra gravy, and you start looking at salads in a different way. Because you don't know if you have time to do the full tune-up and get back to where you really want to be. That leaves me 8 minutes to get to the other one. Any ahas, epiphanies, comments on that topic? Lenora?
I think when it comes to, and really this could, I think, be said about everything, especially cars and how you take care of them, money, how you take care of them, and your body and your mental wellness, goes back to how you were raised. So regional environment, I forget what you called it, but
Regional training?
Regional training, thank you.
Yep.
And that, and I also think it really goes to the culture. And I don't think people, mass media, want people to be thinking for themselves, want people to be knowing how to properly care for your body, knowing how to properly care for your home and take care of your animals and do certain things. Yes, there is a very helpful thing in our culture where we do get to go to a job and get paid, and that's a great thing. And in some extent, it made it easier for people, but at the same time, now at what cost is it? And hands down, I did not grow up with the best way of thinking about food, and I did not grow up with, like what we would consider now a growth-minded mindset. It was very, you're gonna follow the culture. You're gonna go to school. You're gonna do this. You're gonna do that, and it was check your boxes and move through. And it's very, very. I'm still very grateful that people like you all exist.
Thank you. Holly.
So just a quick comment that as it comes to my mind, this idea of responsibility just keeps coming to my mind of who is the ultimate person who takes ownership, who's the CEO, who's the top person who makes the final decisions with your life. And I was specifically thinking about health. And one of the things I wish I'd learned a long time ago is do not outsource that job to anyone else. Do not outsource it to your doctor, to your parents. I mean, granted, if you're like 2 months old, you're probably outsourcing it to your parents. But this idea that these people, they're advisors. They may be giving me advice, but it's still up to me to take ownership of whether or not I'm going to take that advice and whether or not it's right for me, because only I know my particular circumstance, my particular body, the way I do, because I've lived my whole life. They haven't.
100%. So glad you brought that up. Mike. Well, Mike's here just in time for the last topic. You don't even have to start at the beginning, but I've got 5 minutes to throw it out there. Topic is becoming, and it's kind of right in line with the regional training and the tune-up and everything. And it basically is, when's the last time you took the time to evaluate your life from an outside view? Where are you at? Where do you want to go? What can be improved? If you had somebody just like you ask you for advice on how to improve your life, what would you tell them? How would you help them become the best version of who they are to accomplish what they want to do? And it goes right in line with a lot of the stuff that I help people with, like the Triple P protocol, perfect partner protocol. You go through all this time figuring out who is your perfect partner. And that isn't a partner who's perfect for the rest of the world, perfect for you. Doesn't matter. Your values and criteria. Nobody else can judge because it's not for them, they're for you. But when you get that all done, who is that person going to be attracted to? And is there any area for improvement on your behalf? Who do you have to become to attract that level of person? And hopefully you've shot high enough to where there's some room for improvement on your behalf. But it's also the same with manifesting things, partner, or winning the lottery? Who would you have to be to handle a sudden influx of that type of income without self-sabotaging? Like the 80% of the lottery winners who within 2 to 3 years are right back where they started. They had a hell of a ride. Woohoo! 2 to 3 years of, oh my God, I can do anything. And now all of a sudden they're back at their old job because they didn't become the person that could handle that influx, that life change, that supply. People who reach out and find a partner that is way above their pay grade, but they didn't become the person they had to be to keep that. Who can you become? What kind of tune-up will it require to reach that person? And what kind of regional training do you have to look back that you've received and undo or improve on so that you can be a different person in the time frame that you need to do it in? Now, at the beginning of the year, I put a challenge out on Triple T. Who do you want to be January 1st, 2025? And I challenged everybody to think large enough to where you're like, it's a little stretching it, a little bit. But you go from January 1st, 2025, and you reverse engineer your year. So you have something to gauge against to make sure that you're en route to your destination. Mike.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Cool. Okay, cool. This really is amazing because I look at myself and see all the areas that I need to improve, those little gray areas that I'm like, it's good enough. There's a little dust on there. That's all right. It's just me, whatever. But the thing is that when I have the opportunity to be able to dust that off and get that loose and improve those things, it's not just for someone else, it's for me and how much better I am going to feel. And with the self-pride and the self-esteem and the self-confidence that it's generated is just going to rocket the rest of my life. So this is kind of what I needed right now. I really appreciate that.
Awesome. I appreciate you stopping in for the nugget you needed to put in your pocket. Just like that. Look at you.
At least 3 of us say that every single week.
Well,
and we're not paid to do so. This is just great insights and great intuition.
And here we are just past the top of the hour. So I managed to just squeak in my 3 topics of the week. And now it's for those of you watching live or for the first time or watching the recording for the first time. Squirrel. the way it works now is second hour is open platform, open mic. Anybody on the call can bring up any topic or question they want. So it behooves you join us. You don't even have to know how to spell NLP to join us. And then I let everybody on the call answer first. If there's anything else I can add afterwards, then I add my two centavos then. So what do we got? Laura.
I wanted to piggyback off of the conversation that we were just having. I was on a call today with somebody and they had shared with me their Q4, what they were going into on the fourth quarter. And that's what they called their end of the year. And they had broken their year up into 4 quarters. And I thought it was such a beautiful play on a shift in perspective. You know, especially with what TJ had proposed to everybody and offered to everybody at the beginning of the year. Who do you want to be in 2025? That I love the idea of that. And also it makes me a little anxious because I'm like, well, crap, that's a whole year. That's a lot to do. I got da. And I have to take it in smaller chunks. And I think of things in like 4 and 3 week time frames or 6 week time frames, or all right, I'm going to spend the next couple of weeks just focusing on this, or like, this is where my month is. And that seems to be a bit more digestible for me. And even if I have the 2025 out there as the long term, this is kind of more the immediate short term, and I get to play with that. And when they had said Q4, I was like, wow, I might be ready for bigger chunks of time here. And it just was very interesting the way that they had shared it. And there is another book around here somewhere, and I can't think of it. And this person shares that they break their day up into 3 days, and or into 4 days. So they have, it must be 3. Okay, I'm going to go 3. So stop confusing all of you. 24 hours. You have 24 hours in the day. But things don't have to move as slowly as they once did. For example, when you had to send a letter back in the day, you had to write the letter, you had to put it in the mail, the Pony Express had to take it, it was going to be a week later. Now things move so much faster. You can send off an email. So in their 24-hour day, they have 3 days. They spend a day in their mind. They spend a day of it taking care of themselves and sleeping. And that's 8 hours. The next 8 hours is a different chunk of time. And then the next 8 hours is another chunk of time. So I thought it was just very interesting. And it somehow made 24 hours feel really expansive all of a sudden. And it draws your awareness to where are you spending your time. And it helps, I think, make it more approachable and more achievable. The word I was looking for. What are your thoughts?
Who's got some comments for Lenora?
So the actor who plays Drax in Guardians of the Galaxy, he talks about that.
It must be in a book or I saw him on a reel or something. I know I see the person, but yes, I could definitely see that. It must be in a book that had come up in the storyline.
Yeah, he's done a couple of interviews and basically says, I get more done in a day than most people get done in a week because he breaks it into the 8-hour segments. So, cool. Good job.
Very interesting.
Holly.
I'll weigh in here. I absolutely love that, by the way. So 2 things that popped into my head. So the first one is responding to the 4 quarters. I do, as a business person, it's always about, we're in this quarter, what's our goal for this quarter, where are we at, checking in with your budget. So I absolutely love doing that. But one of the things our teacher taught us when we were looking at this is he said, always make sure you're checking in, always make sure you're touching the budget, but make sure you always balance that with, he talked about how Japanese companies tend to have 99-year plans, whereas U.S. companies sometimes get so caught up in quarter 4 that they don't even have a year plan. And if they really are being aggressive, they might have a 10-year plan. So, and then also just kind of this idea of a quarterly plan is great. But if you're double checking every 2 seconds and haven't given yourself to actually work on your goals, this is kind of like a person who maybe weighs himself 3 times a day, when they're trying to lose weight. Just make sure that when you're getting those, there's nothing wrong with getting the feedback, but just make sure as you're getting that feedback that you're being generous to yourself, you're being kind to yourself, and you're just saying, hey, this is just where we're at right now. We're checking in to see if we want to change course, but that doesn't mean we're going to beat ourselves up for being off course in any tiny little way. Very helpful to chunk things down, but also helpful to get that overall view and making sure you balance the two. And then also, I just kind of love this idea of breaking up the day into multiple days. I actually thought a lot about this. I was studying polyphasic sleep for a while, and I was reading the journals of some people who basically they had to divide every day into 4-hour chunks, because 20 minutes of every 4 hours they would sleep. And they were talking about how it's a completely different world because it really felt like a day, because their sleep was actually that too. And it just kind of goes back to that idea, for those who know the Kuji, that idea of Rutz, of time really is an illusion. And 5 minutes can feel like an eternity. And, 3 weeks can feel like 2 seconds. So just learning that you could actually consciously take control of that. And a lot of that has to do with how you subdivide time. Whether that's, for some people it's on the clock, but for a lot of people it's events. So it's, I took care of myself for these couple hours with intention. And then I took care of others for a couple hours with intention. So I absolutely love that.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Michael.
So Elijah just shared in the chat, says Arnold Schwarzenegger recommends sleeping 6 hours instead of 8 hours. And for those who say they can't, he says, sleep faster.
Yes. And there are times when I wake up in the morning and I went, that was 8 hours? No, I'm pretty sure that was 8 minutes. No, it's 8 hours. No, my body says it's 8 minutes, but the clock says different. Anybody else got any input on that? Mark.
Old book that came out in the 70s. It was called How to Get Control of Your Time and Your Life. And you take the time every morning to create a to-do list, and you break them down into A's, B's, and C's. The A's, those are things you focus most on. If you can get most of the A's done, you cross them off as you get them done. Gives you that sense of accomplishment. The B's are kind of important. So if you get a few of the B's done, that's okay. And then the C's are things that you can create. Again, there's not a high priority, but if you get a couple of the C's done, 4 or 5 of the B's, and most of your A's, you can look at the end of the day and see a real feeling of accomplishment. And then the next day you do it again. The stuff that was a C might move up to a B goes to an A. And the name of the book is called How to Get Control of Your Time and Your Life, and you set up, because a schedule isn't supposed to lock you in. A schedule, if you flip it upside down, frees you up to notice what time you have available to focus on things. If you
Absolutely.
if you perceive it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, good book.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because there are so many, it's amazing the amount of day planners and things of that nature that are designed for people that are, we're just going to call it focus challenged, where you can actually write down the things that you need to do. And I've freaked myself out a couple of times, because it is so easy for me to go through and come up with 300 things that I need to do, and then trying to decide which ones are the priority. And it's been said many times, if you have more than 3 priorities, you have none. You pick the top 3 priorities. The rest are things that you have to do when you finish the priorities. Get those 3 top things done first. Then go pick out 3 more top things that need to be done. And I know we've talked about this on Triple T a couple of times. Too often we, how's it go? We overthink how long it's going to take to do something and underthink our abilities. The amount of times that I've had projects that I have put off sometimes for months, because I knew it was going to take me all day or longer. And finally, one day I was just like, I got to get this done. And 22 minutes later, it's done. And I'm like, for real, real. I've put this off for how long? I could have done 3 of these projects in an hour. And then I get into my squirrels leading me around like a drunken fool in the fog. Oh, look at that. Oh, I should probably, oh, look at, there's a shiny. Oh, look at the shiny. Oh, I should probably deal with this. Oh, but I got to get this little thing. Oh, oh, look, I haven't seen this in like forever. Oh, oh, the day's done? Well, I didn't get much done today, darn it. But I was busy the whole day. My watch says I put on 11,000 steps because I had no priorities. I was just bouncing from one shiny object to the next, 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 to the, oh, so, well, I got to reply to this right away. Yes, I had a burger last night. That was important information. Da 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 da. And pretty soon the day is over. And when I had my photography studio, one of the great things about that was people showed up and needed stuff done. And I had deadlines and I had projects. What do we got? Yeah, exactly. Elijah just put a little cartoon in the chat. Honey, are you coming to bed? No, I can't. This is important. Well, what is it? Someone is wrong on the internet. I'm going to have to fix that. But I'm preaching to my own choir in front of you guys. It's time for me to get back to making sure that I have priority lists, that I have to-do lists, that I have stuff. Because I live on 4 acres with a big shop, with a big office, with a big internet, with a big phone, with a billion things that can suck away my day in a blink of an eye. And my watch will tell me that I was moving all day long. I was busy. And then you watch ants What do ants do all summer? Hammer down, full on, mission on. We got things to do. If a rock gets in our way, we go around it. If something happens, we go around it. If Billy gets stepped on, Johnny picks up Billy's load and gets it back to the anthill because winter is coming. They don't care if it's 108 degrees out. You watch them, when it gets that hot, they're down inside the anthill, and I know they're not down there sipping on a cold one waiting for the temperature to drop. They're moving, excavating, getting things, they're doing stuff, and as soon as it's cool enough for them to get back out, the ground is busy with activity again. Lenora.
I think Holly had mentioned such a beautiful statement, and the word is intention. And a lot, and I do this a lot. I think about like the next step or like the 5 next steps, and I'm never here. I walk away from here quite frequently. And I think setting the intention, I do best when I set the intention. And even if it's to go to sleep. So Mike had mentioned in the comments, he said, and I'm interested in the time conversation. This is also what I needed to hear today. So time is something that we get to play with and we get to expand. And I know of a few things that work for me. And I know there are plenty of people on this call that definitely know some really good stuff. And one of them that I use very specifically for sleep is I intend the clock, and I say this throughout the day. Time is on my side. Time is always on my side. Time is on my side. And I stretch the clock out. So I'll take the clock or picture of a clock, and I will stretch it out really, really far so that it goes out into the distance. And I will say, I have all the time in the world. Sleep, body, mind, you get all the rest that you want. We are now not on anyone's schedule. We have all the time in the world. And I will intend my body to then relax and do whatever it needs to do. And something else that is really helpful is to take all your cares and all your worries and all your have-to-dos and all of these things that you tomorrow, you put them in a suitcase. Close the suitcase, and you put the suitcase outside your bedroom. And just like when you leave the airplane, you're able to pick them up on the way out. So we'll keep them safe here for now. So I get them out of the room. So that's another fun thing to do with your list. Some people like to keep a notepad by the bed. Some people like to do different things. It's one of the things that I like to do and that I share with other people to do. And like that Elijah said that they do their best work at night. There are times where I do my best work at night. Yeah, totally agree with him on that one. But time, another good one is time. As keep saying throughout the day, time is on my side. Time is on my side. Time slowing down just for me. Time is on my side. And you will be shocked as to how slowly that clock moves or how quickly it moves. If you're in a place and you don't want to be there, time is on your side. Don't you worry. And it works in your favor. Thank you.
I find it so funny when people say that you can't control time, that time is constant. And I'm like, no, you can slow down time just like that. You know, one of the easiest ways to slow down time, do a plank. 1 minute becomes the longest minute you've witnessed when you're doing a plank. And if you want to speed up time, I just need 5 more minutes of sleep. That's it. And you blink and a half an hour went by just like that. So you can't tell me that we can't have some different thought processes on how time goes by. I remember the very first time I heard somebody tell me that time is just an illusion and that it only really exists with humans on this planet. And I was like, I don't know what you're smoking, but it seems like it's pretty good stuff because, But the more I'm around this and understand and hear other things, I'm more and more in line with that thought process. The idea that there are multiple timelines that we're all kind of rolling with. There are, we've, and if you're watching this for the first time, welcome to Planet TJ. Multiple lifetimes? Absolutely. The amount of things that I've experienced, heard, helped people with in my work alone, you couldn't convince me anymore that people do not go through multiple lifetimes. With that being said, what do we bring forward from those lifetimes? And what are we setting ourselves up for in the next one? I've had some clients that I've helped them work through stuff that came from many lifetimes ago. And when I regress them to those lifetimes, they can give you a full description of colors, smells, actions, what happened, where they were, why it happened, all the above. And it's all connected to an energy that they're still dealing with here today. Mark.
Mike, one playful exercise you can do is candle meditation. And if you're in a room where the candle is flickering, just get into that infinite space as you go into state of the infinite space between one flicker and the next. And it's a kind of a fun exercise because you can stretch that out to infinity.
Mm-hmm.
And notice, like I said, you just take a candle, and it's the only light in the room. And if it's flickering, like I said, just try to get in between that infinite space between the flickers. It's a fun exercise to do. I do it once in a while. Well, the thing about multiple lifetimes, I've had repetitive dreams about going to the library and my library, of this, I went and visited my inner child, and he was the caretaker of my of my library. And each day, I said, "What are these?" And he goes, "These are all," they were like little folios. It's each day of my life, and I pulled one out at random and opened it up, and it was what I did, what I saw, who I played with as a kid that day, what did we do, the sights, the sounds. And it was just like a little folio of everything that happened on that particular day. It was a huge library. And then I glanced down, and the floor of that library was clear. It was like, you could see down, and what I saw below me to a large number is all these other levels. And I said, what's that? And he goes, oh, those are all your past lives. And I said, can I get there? He goes, yeah, it takes a little bit of work, but you can get there. And I haven't done the regression training yet, but I've but I do believe in multiple lifetimes. All the religions agree we're here to learn stuff. I don't think we can learn everything we need to learn to progress up the double helix, as Shirley MacLaine professes, in one lifetime. All the things we need to learn. It would take a number of visits back here, and but yeah, that dream always stays with me of all those other lifetimes, and what's built. This particular turn or chapter is what I've but yeah, I've had that dream quite a few number of times, going to the library, where all the long-term memories are stored. Just like I used to love libraries, and all the knowledge is contained, and and then to look down and see all those different levels, all those different pasts, and having that other part of me assure me that yeah, I can get there. Just takes a little bit of work.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the protocols I use with my clients is actually, and I have them go into an old library, smell the leather and the seats, and smell the smell of an, if you've been in a really cool old library, it has the smell of old books. Old books have that feel, that smell, and I have them walk up, and I go and look at all of the pictures on the wall of all the great people that have been there before you. But I want you to find your book. Notice your book on the shelf there. Pull it down. What's the cover made of? When you open it up, notice it's not just your memories, but there's stuff written in there of what people thought of you, how you've affected other people with your life. Little references, side references. What you did that affected another person.
You have the opportunity going to Trinity College Library, where they keep the Book of Kells in Dublin, and you can know everything in the world, from perusing the internet for decades, but you don't know what it smells like in that library.
Yeah.
All the old folios and all the old, books stacked, and, to see the Book of Kells, like I said, it was a wonderful experience.
Yeah. And in the town that by where I grew up, we had one of Carnegie, a library that Carnegie built, and unfortunately it went under and they turned it into something else. But I still remember going into that library with all the woodwork, all the shelving, everything, and all the books in there. And it just had that energy, that smell, and I think there's a lot of, especially the newer generations, where everything is here, and they look at those old books and like, well, what are you going to do with that? And I have to share this thought. I thought it was funny as all get out. On a plane where getting ready to take off, and everybody in a certain generation had their electronics out and had to shut them off. But there was 3 or 4 people who had that old technology and they didn't have to shut it off. So they just kept on reading. And I also noticed that they're getting more rare by the year, possibly the minute. You can still buy maps. But how many people can navigate and go by one? I grew up in a truck driving family. I can, you give me a map and I can. I also grew up in the generation of MapQuest where you actually had to pull it up and print it out and bring it with you. And you better remember the details and write some notes on there. Michael.
My first drive to Cabo. I've now made it 31 times. But we had MapQuest. And go to this gas station, turn left, turn right. And oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so there's something to be said about that as well. But they're getting more and more rare. And so if you could go into the library of life and pull out your book, what would you notice in there? What references would other people have posted in there? And what are you going to do to change the last whatever chapters are left in there? I read a little quote today that said what other people have posted in there. I read a little quote that said, time is the only bank account that we don't know what the remaining balance is. But we draw from it every day. Again, time is the only bank account that we are not allowed to see the balance, but we draw from it every day. Lenora.
Elijah wrote, I'm overdrawn.
I get that.
Why do you think it's easier to have these conversations now and to have these insights now versus in the beginning of the day? What kind of ways can we carry this awesome insights that we all have every Tuesday with us each morning?
Mark.
Actually, that led into something I don't know. So that I know that during, she said, whenever I mentioned something at the beginning about getting up at 4 a.m. and then, and I heard something just recently, last week or so, that billionaires get up at 4 in the morning. And I'm wondering, like I said, I think it might have to do with, DMT release, because if you stay in a dark room for so long, you get that theta wave, which is the creativity. And, again, but I think during sleep, deep sleep, I think we enter that brainwave, and I think that the reason why I think billionaires get up at 4 in the morning is because not just for the quiet, but being able to focus. But I think they get their most creative insights at 4 in the morning. When the DMT is really chugging, and they can be at their most creative and the most insightful. So I don't know the answer to that. It's a rabbit hole that I just found. So I will. Hopefully, the universe will give me more insights as far as lead me down certain paths to that natural release of that DMT, getting into that theta wave zone. I get up around 4:30 every morning, and maybe a lot of my insights come to me. My creativity is at max, but I don't know. Again, I'm asking a question rather than stating a certainty.
Awesome. Fran, you got your hand up, and thanks
I
for
got
joining
my
us.
hand up, and having come in on the tail end of this, so I apologize if I'm repeating or going off track, but this sort of 4 in the morning, for me, it's 2 or 3 in the morning when my circadian rhythm is at its sort of lowest level. And that's when the barriers between real and non-real become very thin between your conscious and your unconscious mind. It's a wonderful time for inspiration, for not a good time to miss out on sleep, because you usually don't feel so great at that time. But yes, it is definitely the time of least resistance from your conscious mind, from your physiological system, that you are at your most primitive and vulnerable and aware. So, it's got good sides and not so good sides. Being awake at 2 o'clock in the morning and not feeling happy or not feeling inspired, a real pain in the neck. But it's also that wonderful point, that point between reality and non-reality, where you can explore and open up amazing gateways into what you wouldn't have realized if you were fully wide awake and in your flowing everyday state. So I hope that's on track, but
It
thank
is.
you.
No, perfectly on track. And real quick, Mark, I was going to add in Wayne Dyer was well known for saying that he when he opened his eyes, that's when he would get up, because he knew that he was woken up. It didn't have an alarm clock, but he knew that that was his time to get out of bed, because there was something that was being said to him, and he would go to his typewriter and just start letting whatever was in his head flow out through the keys, and wrote some of his best stuff at 2, 3 in the morning.
And a lot of well-known, amazing people have actually deliberately woken themselves at that time for that purpose. So, yeah, it's a very useful time, but I'd rather sleep.
Yes. Mark, you had your hand up?
No, I was just thinking that that you were talking earlier about books, and I think when you read something, you're using both halves of your brain, your conscious mind to decode it, and your subconscious is where the tapestry of the story is created. And I read a lot, and like you said about surviving on with the phones. I'm not sure we create those tapestries, and if I hadn't read all the books, I wouldn't have all that to draw on. And I'm not sure that not reading books is a good thing. um, you know I was always a voracious reader, and luckily my grandchildren are too. So and my kids were. They'd come into our room at night and they'd see us both reading before we went to bed, and it was talk about training, and the and I think that our subconscious is the guardian of our long-term memory, so we can be very creative at those times, as Fran said it, when the walls of reality thin. It's like, because that's where we get our dreams, and dreams can last, just a short time, but it can seem like an immense amount of time within a dream, because our subconscious doesn't have a good time sense, and the it I think the conscious mind created this concept of time, and the subconscious, like I said, when you're in a playful state, time seems to just slip away, and you can be engaged in something for hours if you're having fun, and but if you're in a boring meeting, it seems to last hours and hours and hours. That other part, again, and that's that. The subconscious has a very poor time sense.
And piggybacking on that real quick, that's why they say that in classes, the brain can only absorb what the butt can withstand. I've known some teachers that they could go on for they could teach for 18 hours straight. The problem is they've stopped teaching about 9 hours into the day. After that, they're just speaking to a bunch of people going, and they've lost everything that happened after 9 hours. Michael.
That leads into the 15-minute chair, the 30-minute chair, the 2 and 3 hour chair. In restaurants in America, they want to get you out. So you've got a little most uncomfortable chair. You're like, I don't want to sit here any longer. I got to go.
Yep.
But
And that is a true. You look at some of the very high-end restaurants. Why are their chairs? Why are their seating so comfortable? Because they know that you're going to invest enough money to sit there that long. Places that require high turnover to make their profit. Welcome to our flat plastic chair that doesn't swivel. That's a little close to the table. Yes. And that leaves us with 13 minis left. What else do we got? Come on.
I had a question for all of you. I would like to, and I'm debating about it. So really, this is like a breezy, airy thought, and it just keeps kind of bumbling around again. I would like to possibly do like Facebook Lives and share a little bit more online. And I'm thinking like 15, 20 minutes. What are your thoughts? What are some topics? Any other suggestions of where to go? Or like, hey, Lenora, just get your shit together and do a YouTube channel already. I'm open to your insights.
All right, tribe. What do you got for Holly?
Hollywood coming.
I'll jump in. Yes, of course I will. So my first thing what I would say is always have your ideal customer in mind. And that, obviously you might have customers that are, outside of that avatar or whatever, but that, it gives you a place to start. And I would even go into like the DTI process DTI your ideal customer and see what questions does your ideal customer have. And then all of a sudden you've got just answer those questions. And those could make some really good, quick videos. There's nothing wrong with being exclusively Facebook. You don't ever have to go to YouTube at all. One of the things that we talked about in one of my trainings is you just know you have a different audience. So Facebook's going to have a certain audience. Instagram's going to have a certain audience. YouTube's going to have a certain audience. And if your audience isn't even in that location, you probably shouldn't be spending the majority of your time coming up with a product for the place that isn't where your audience is at. Now, granted, that doesn't, also on the flip side, what feels comfortable to you? It's better to get started where you feel comfortable than to worry, oh, is this where my ideal customer is located? If that makes sense.
I feel like you just answered my question. This is great. Thank you.
There's my 2 cents. I'll let somebody else jump in.
Love it.
Holly, what's DTI?
It's deep trance identification. Yes. Basically, you bring up someone's avatar. It could be anybody that you want to learn from. And then you're able to step into that avatar and see the world through their life, through their eyes, see what they feel, what they hear, what they see. And yes, I know I just mixed words see with other things, but yeah, basically that.
Very cool. I heard DTI and I was thinking ChatGPT. I'm like, is there something like on the internet we can do to find some more stuff out? But that's even better. So thank you.
A few of them have actually done quite a bit of DTI, and it's very, very interesting.
The triple P protocol is basically a form of DTI. You create your person and then you find out what they're looking for. And Fran, you had your hand up.
Well, I was just going to make a little comment about a sort of kind of magic time frame to think about. And just that 20-minute time frame is kind of a magical time. It's enough to go into a deep state of trance and wake up feeling really refreshed, kind of the shortest period that you can do something really effective in. Though, of course, 10 minutes is also really good. But if you're thinking of doing a Facebook Live, my thoughts are, 20-minute span is just fantastic. Sorry about my phone. I didn't turn it off.
It's okay.
Awesome. Thank you. Michael, he's said potentially dangerous because you can take on characteristics that you don't want. For example, I think, was it Milton? And well, actually, can you come on the mic because you know the story better than me? Thank you.
Hear me. Sidney Bernstein did a DTI with Milton Erickson as his model and ended up in a wheelchair.
Yep.
Like DTI is no joke, dude. It really, really works. I did a DTI with someone who is an absolute genius and constantly 2 steps ahead of everybody because I wanted to be 2 steps ahead of everybody, but I was a little bit careless and didn't take into account that they also were psychopathic. And I ended up getting some symptoms and some rage and some, that happened like in 2022, 2021, 2022. And it was, it's not something that you can easily avoid it. You just have to do a lot of work up front. You have to really study the model. You have to really study who they are, who they were, what they stood for, what their beliefs are, their values, etc., and then just really be very, very clear on what you want and even more clear on what you don't want from the model.
Right there.
And it really, really, really works because that's how children learn, by mimicking grown-ups. They learn through deep trance identification. Nobody ever sat with a dictionary and taught their child all the words in English, right?
Right.
Yep.
Yes, DTI really, really, really works. I'm, and you don't have to take on all the characteristics of the other person. Do consider your DTI model carefully and take just the bits you want. And if you're doing more than one person mix or more than one energy mix, only do one or two, maybe three at a time, because otherwise you end up with a muddy palette that, like painting, like mixing paints, if you put too many colors in, you get muddiness. And then you have to go back and redo your DTI. I'm an example of DTI. Very much, it's totally, totally changed my life, who I am, that I can become extroverted. I was very introverted a little while back, and with DTI, that's not a factor anymore.
Good thing.
Mark.
I'm wondering how similar DTI is to Pillars of Power.
That would be a playground to utilize DTI in. A metaphor, a protocol. Yeah, I've used a number of different methods, protocols, and for helping people with DTI. In fact, my class, Identity Management University, is right in it has to do with DTI. Lenore.
A really good example of somebody who did DTI would be Austin Butler. He took on the role of Elvis Presley, and he went so deep that his voice has not gone back to what it used to be. His voice is now his voice. That's where he is. That's how he navigates the world. And you can still see those characteristics that he played as Elvis. You see those characteristics as him naturally talking with an audience, and his voice is significantly deeper, his speech is significantly slower, and just still pretty closely with his role.
A lot of method acting is DTI. Elijah.
Yeah, you literally just took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say an example of it going really wrong was Heath Ledger playing the Joker and then getting so involved and identified with the character and then, passing away shortly after filming. It's DTI is one of those things that, like, if you're in the hypnosis game, you know about it and you learn about it relatively early on, but not everybody talks about it, because if it's left unchecked or not done professionally and very carefully, we don't want people harming themselves.
Yep.
So I'm happy to do DTI sessions with people. I have done DTI sessions with people, but I'm very particular. You have to really convince me that you've studied the model really well.
100%.
Another aspect of having done DTI is that all the people that know you have to readjust to this new version of you.
Yes.
And they find it quite uncomfortable, particularly your nearest and dearest and family. I experienced a lot of pushback with these upgrades, but I love the upgrades so much. And my aim is to make me more of the me that I feel I could have, should have been. And that's where I take my cherry picking models from and incorporate them. And it's been incredibly useful in personal life, in business life. Yes, there are downsides, but you don't have to take all the bad bits. Be very selective about what you do take. Don't take the whole package, because you don't want the whole package of the model that you're modeling yourself on.
I am so glad you brought that up, because one of the most effective ways to completely do DTI would be to move to a new place by yourself right after the completed session, where nobody knows you, and you take your DTI to the level that you want it to be. And like you said, now going home, you're going to be a little bit of a challenge, because they're going to want to try and squeeze you back into that tiny little box that they know who you were. And you don't fit in that box anymore. And you have to have the strength and the wherewithal to hold the frame. This is who I am today. This is who I'm going to be tomorrow. I know who you wanted me to be, but that person exists in your mind, not mine anymore.
I think that's a wonderful concept of playing with I haven't tried a temporary DTI, but doing a temporary DTI at a party, see what you like, be that person, take it to its extremities, and have it just for 8 hours, 6 hours, and just play with that. It would be a lot of fun. And maybe a temporary DTI is a really good way to select the parts that you really do want in your permanent life. So
I met a couple of people that's part of their fun of travel. Before they leave, they will figure out who they want to be on the vacation. And then they method act or DTI into that person and those people, and they support each other and feed off of each other. And they said it turns their vacation into something so different, so much more memorable. And they admitted there were a couple of things that they were like, you know what? I like this person. I'm going to do this when I get home.
Well, it's going on holiday from yourself as well as...
Exactly. And sometimes we need that. And we are at the top of our hour again. We were talking about time manipulation a little bit ago. Isn't it funny how 2 hours, well, just like that. And so here I am again, where I get to thank you guys so much for taking your precious commodity of time. I will always say this, it's the one thing I can't reproduce and give back to you. As soon as I figure out how to do that, I promise you, you will be the second people to know, because you all deserve it that much. But until then, thank you for offering up your precious commodity of time here for this platform to be part of our tribe. I adore every single one of you for being part of this tribe. You've made it the reason that we are here for 140 of these in a row. So please take care. And Elijah, you got your hand up?
Yeah, just real quick, for anyone interested, I have just put a link in the chat for a video that demonstrates DTI very well, and you can see it working very effectively by a gentleman called Michael Watson, who is absolutely freaking brilliant hypnotist and NLP trainer.
Awesome. I'm glad you managed to get that in. Everybody, if you want, make sure you copy that really quick. Enjoy the next 7 days. Go out in the world, make it a better place, and become the absolute best version of yourself that you possibly can. And if you need any help, please reach out to us. For those of you watching the recording or watching live on YouTube, love you, Mom. Good night. And for the rest of you, love you all. See you back here in 7 glorious days.
Night. Thanks
Thank
a
you,
lot.
everyone.
And all these.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, TJ.
Awesome one, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, TJ.